Hello BookTube. Today I'm going to be doing the 7 responses to Truth tag. This tag was created by Shelf Learner and I was tagged by Saracen's Salute. I will leave links to both channels in the show notes down below, as well as a list of books mentioned. This tag lends itself to nonfiction answers, so I will be focusing on nonfiction for the books that I will be mentioning. Most of the books will be history because while I would wish my nonfiction collection would be more diverse, it is pretty much a massive amount of history and a relatively minuscule amount of science and a little other nonfiction. So let's get started. Prompt number 1. You don't know what you don't know. This prompt gave me no hint of trouble in the months that I've been working on this tag. But a few weeks ago, it hit me. Astrobiology. Because while we know there is likely life beyond Earth, all of the 100 billion stars and 100 billion galaxies, Earth cannot be the only one. But we don't know what that life would be like. Scientists, astrobiologists can postulate, but with a sample size of 1, who knows what is out there and what that life would look like. So for this prompt, I'm going to go with Imagined Life by James Trefil and Michael Summers. It is a work of speculative science that postulates what life could exist in certain relatively extreme environments by Earth life standards, or at least most of Earth life standards. It is an interesting book, but like with a lot of speculative science, it does perhaps get a little silly. And on a reread, I definitely found myself annoyed by some of the silliness that Trefil and Summers wrote. Prompt number 2. You don't know, but you think you know. For some odd reason, when I made my list of answers for these prompts, I got the next prompt mixed up with this one. But I corrected it, and for this prompt, I'm going to go with 1177 BC by Eric H. Cline. 1177 BC is about the end of the Bronze Age. The Bronze Age was a period of time in the late 2nd millennium BC in which the Eastern Mediterranean, extending to the Middle East into Central Asia, kind of came together in a fairly cosmopolitan trading culture. There were a few major states, major kingdoms, Egypt, Hatti, Mitanni, Babylon, Assyria, maybe the Mycenaean or Mycenae, and a few or in many minor and moderate states like Ugarit and others. And so this culture was defined by diplomacy and elite trade goods, and generally speaking, not a whole lot of major wars. But then something happened to end this. And for generations, once this kind of the Bronze Age became known and studied, there were assumptions made that these civilizations, with the exception of Egypt and Assyria, fell because of the depredations of a people called the Sea Peoples. Well, research has marched along, and now there are a number of factors suspected, and that's what 1177 BC looks at. Not only the late Bronze Age itself, but what could have happened. And Cline points to a number of climatic factors that led to poor harvests, desertification, that sort of thing. But ultimately, while we know more now, we still don't know, ultimately, what happened to bring about these the collapse. Prompt number 3. You know that you don't know, and you don't care to know. For this prompt, I'm deciding to pick on philosophy. And I'm going to go with the Republic of Plato. Largely because all I know of Plato is his relevance to the foundations of literary criticism and literary theory, and how his work is largely responsible for the millennia-long inferiority complex that literature and the other arts have. So I would like to avoid Plato as much as I can. Prompt number 4. You know that you don't know, but you want to know. For this prompt, I'm going to go with 2 works of history, both about civilizations that I don't, or dynasties that I don't know much about, but I would like to know more. So first up is The Four Heavens by David Stuart. This is a new history of the Maya, which was a civilization in what is now southern Mexico and Central America. The other book is The Song Dynasty by Christian Lammouroux, translated from the French by Patricia, Buckley, Ebrey, and Charles Hartman. So this is a history of, or a forthcoming history of the Song Dynasty of China. Prompt number 5. You know, but you don't care to know. For this prompt, I'm going with a work of history, or more a work of biography, that I wish I could expunge from my memory and then not read it again. And that is Egypt's Golden Couple by John and Colleen Darnell. Egypt's Golden Couple is a dual biography of Akhenaten and his primary queen Nefertiti, who were the last prominent rulers of the 18th dynasty of Egypt. This dynasty originated centuries earlier as the ruling family of Thebes and of upper or southern Egypt during the second intermediate period. They reunified the kingdom under their rule when they chased the Hyksos, who ruled lower northern Egypt, out. and they would rule for several centuries, with, again, Akhenaten being the last important ruler who is most famous for changing Egyptian royal ideology to favor the Aten, the personification of the solar disk, as opposed to the traditional patron god of not just the city of Thebes, but of the dynasty itself, the god Amun, or Amun-Ra. And so the Egyptian capital was moved to Amarna, and a whole lot of other reforms happened that ultimately were ephemeral, as the traditional Egyptian ideology was restored after Akhenaten's death. So the book is a dual biography of Akhenaten and Nefertiti, and that part is okay, but ultimately the book doesn't quite know what it wants to do, because the beginning chapter of each chapter is a fictional scene that annoyed me to no end. And there are also parts of the book that are like an archaeology memoir. And so as I was reading the book, I'm like, make up your mind what you want this book to be and focus on that. And then in the future, work out the other two. But anyway, wish there were more works on ancient Egypt coming out, but I guess since the centennial of the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb is past, there won't be much ancient Egyptian history for a while, or that little glut that came out. Anyway, prompt number 6. You know, but you don't want anyone else to know. I'm not entirely sure about my choice for this one, which is The Witch by Ronald Hutton. So The Witch is a global history of the witch figure. And it is a very interesting book, but hoo boy is it dense. And I think perhaps maybe my recommendation against it is that it would put someone off of doing any sort of research in like folkloric or mythological figures and characters. Prompt number 7. You know and you want others to know. So for this prompt, I'm going to give book recommendations. Some of these books are my usual suspects when I give history book recommendations, and some I don't give as often. So let's get going with these. So first up is Big Wonderful Thing by Stephen Harrigan. It is a massive history of Texas that is history as it should be written. It is both rigorous and also hilarious. Next is sticking with the United States, These Truths by Joe Lepore. It's a big history of the United States that is very good. Moving on to my wheelhouse, The Ancient World, Weaver, Scribes, and Kings by Mandage Podany. It's the best recent work on the ancient Near East, and I really highly recommend it, even if the last time I read it wasn't all that positive, but my reading life is weird, so it is what it is. Also, I would like to recommend Blood on the River by Marjoleine. It's a history of a massive slave rebellion in what is now Suriname or Guyana in the, I think, later 18th century, and it is amazing. And finally, I would like to recommend Bismarck's War by Rachel Chrastil, which is, I think, the most recent history of the Franco-Prussian War. And it is amazing. Chrastil does a wonderful job with both the military side of the history as well as the human cost of it. So that was the 7 responses of truth tag. If you would like to do this tag, consider yourselves tagged. And hopefully I will be doing a few more tag videos over the course of this week because I have developed a bit of a backlog. So anyway, BookTube, until I see you next time, thank you, have a great afternoon, and enjoy it.